teacher trainer, school owner, and award-winning materials writer based in Nagoya. She has taught in Japan for almost 30 years, won Best of JALT in 2011 and 2020, and has presented professionally throughout Japan and at the ER World Congress in Dubai, United Arabic Emirates. And the winner of the 2015 LLL Award in the Young Learner category for Backstage Pass. Her ELT writing credits included teachers' guides, workbooks, and graded readers, including those for the Our World and Welcome to Our World series for National Geographic Learning. So everybody, welcome Lesley Ito. We are so happy to have you, Lesley.
Thank you very much for having me. Great. Okay, so thank you very much for coming today. And I would really like to thank Yoko for putting all this together. Like David said, we have been planning this for about 2 years now. We had intended on having it face-to-face, but Omicron decided to come and ruin our plans. So thank you very much for coming today. My presentation is going to be about like how to teach grammar to children. So this particular session has pretty much 2 aims. Number one, I'm going to talk about what the research out there says, what my original research said, and and give you some strategies for teaching grammar to children. Also, this is going to be give you a lot of advice about what to tell parents, because I know a lot of times parents come, they bring their own experience, remembering when they were in junior high school, and they sometimes really don't understand that it's very, very different with young learners. So anyway, why don't we get started? Share my screen. Okay, so what's the best way to teach grammar to children? Okay. Oops. Oh, I see. Okay, so I became very, very interested in this because I kept getting a lot of, comments from different parents. They would say things like, why does my 2nd grade child, of course, 2nd grade meaning 2nd grade in elementary school, say, he do instead of he does? When I was in the 2nd grade of junior high school, I mastered this grammar rule. At first, I thought it was very, very interesting. Like I said before, during the break time, about half of my students sort of fit into a loose Kikokushijo category. Either they're graduates of international preschools or, lived overseas in an English speaking country, or, went to an international school in a non-English speaking country. And even students who had received so much input still were making these kinds of errors. And I knew that what these parents were asking me was was not right, but I really didn't know why. So that's why I became very, very interested in this topic. One thing I want to say is I know a lot of times people make, presentations about teaching. Truly, this is not my opinion of the things that I'm going to be saying. It's not my opinion. It's not based on my year. I mean, some of it is based on my years of teaching, but all of it can be backed up with research. But at the same time, don't be like, oh no, this is going to be an academic presentation. I'm going to explain everything in very, very plain terms. I went through the pain and agony of reading these academic papers, which can frankly be a bit painful sometimes to read. I'm going to explain everything in plain English, so don't worry. So like I said, I'm going to tell you the best ways to teach grammar to children, and also to tell you how to respond to parents when they, might have some, expectations of what their child should be able to do grammar-wise in this 2nd language of theirs. So the traditional way of teaching grammar is to teaching grammar rules using what they call meta-language. Meta-language is like saying, noun and verb and adjective and, 3rd person singular, past participle, using all of that. This is still the way that, English is mostly taught, especially in the junior high schools in Japan. However, I don't think it's fair to just say it's just Japan. I was taught that way. I was taught Spanish this way when I was in junior high school. I've never been able to communicate in Spanish, even on a basic level. So there you go. Most people who are experts on teaching grammar these days say that the traditional way of, teaching grammar rules, explicitly teaching these, it's not very, very effective. And definitely this method should not be used with children. It just, you can do it, it's not going to work. Definitely not used with children under 10. Both two of the biggest experts in the field of teaching English to young learners, Pinter and Cameron, both of them agree on this. Consciousness raising is, most experts these days on teaching grammar tend to agree that this is the best way. Consciousness raising is letting people kind of know what the rules are and letting them see them in text and be able to understand what mistakes they're making and how to fix them. Okay. Getting students to notice their grammar errors, getting students to know grammar errors and other materials, capitalization, punctuation, spelling. As I said, a lot of they currently see this as the most effective way to teach grammar to adults. But even the expert, Rod Ellis, who is really considered to be the expert in consciousness raising, he agrees it's not really appropriate for young learners. And I'll cite a study that he did later talking about that. Again, we have Pinter saying that activities that raise grammar awareness are not appropriate for children younger than 10. So Pinter says, don't teach the grammar rules to the kids under 10 in the explicit way that you would teach it to adults. And don't try to use this method either with children younger than 10. One thing that's really important to remember is that children are still developing in their first language. So you cannot expect a child to do something really well in their second language that they might not be able to do in their first yet, or that children living in an English-speaking country would not be able to do yet. A lot of times I was kind of noticing this with some of my students, that they would be making the same mistakes, but then when they would get older, they wouldn't make them anymore. And I was like, well, what happened? I told them for years and years and years, and then suddenly it clicked. It was their age. It was that they grew up and they, matured, and the age just took care of it. I had a situation with a parent. They were talking about the spelling rules. My child spells things sort of the way they think that they should be spelled. She's spelling sweater SWETAR rather than the correct way. And I said, well, a child the same age in America would probably be making that same mistake too. So you can't expect her to do something in her second language that children in an English-speaking country would be making those same mistakes. A lot of times what I've done with parents who don't really understand that they're first, second, third graders, why are they making these mistakes? Haven't you been teaching them grammar? When Obama was president, thousands and thousands of children wrote him letters. They called it mail to the chief instead of hail to the chief. They mailed him all these letters, and people posted them on the internet because they were cute. For me, I took a look at all of these and said, this is really interesting to me from the perspective of a language teacher. Here are these kids, they're writing to the president of the United States. So of course they're going to be trying their best and, and giving a really good impression. And yet they are still making grammar errors. This was a one that was written by an 8-year-old child. Dear President Obama, I think a law should, of course, should is misspelled here, should be, so should, did not, so it's not really communicating, it should be to let the kids play with toys their whole life. Okay. Of course, this is very cute. Of course, there it should be THEIR rather than THERE. So even children living in an English-speaking country trying their best to write a letter to the President of the United States, still making these mistakes. So of course, a child living in Japan who doesn't receive that much exposure to English, of course, they're going to be making these errors too. And then we just need to understand what's really going on here. Okay, so I've talked quite a bit about how grammar should not be taught to children. How should grammar be taught to children? Okay, here we have Cameron. She said that they should be taught in rote learned chunks. Okay, so if somebody is wearing clothes, then you say she is wearing da 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 da. Or if you wanted to talk about some place that you have been to, then you say they learn the chunk I have been to. They don't learn why or the mechanics of this or the the technical terms that you would use to describe this particular form of grammar. They just learn, oh, if you want to say this is what you say. However, the problem with learning chunks of language is that EFL students don't have time to naturally get enough input in the classroom. This is like, crash. If you've ever heard of Krashen's, the natural method, children should naturally acquire the grammar. Well, that's great. If they're in an English speaking environment, they're going to do that. If you have a once a week lesson, there's just not enough time to do that. So what can you do? You can bring the children's attention to repetitive language in picture books, songs, and chants. These can be great ways to facilitate language learning in chunks, okay? And also extensive reading can be an effective way to get input outside of the classroom. Okay, so now, let me just make 100% sure that I am. Oh yeah, okay. So now how to teach grammar using graded readers. Okay, hold on. Here I am. Okay. So graded readers that you use in the classroom, this is a great way to give the kids these input, expose them to the grammar forms in the form of an interesting story. So let's take a look. So this is one, these are companion graded readers that go with Our World. This one is What's in My Classroom. Okay, so it's on the wall. It's a circle. What is it? Okay, so this page is actually really great because first of all, you're exposing the kids to very, very simple grammar that they've probably already learned in their textbook. It's, preposition on the wall. It's, it's a circle. What is it? Not only that, you're also drawing them. They're having to figure out what the meaning is so that they can answer the question. Okay. So what is it? Oh, it's a clock. Okay. And then again, on the next page, we have the same grammar form here. It's the clock. It's small. It's yellow. What is it? What is it? Does everybody know? It's small. It's yellow. What is it?
Is it an eraser? What is this?
Yellow, yellow.
Yellow, yellow, yellow. Oh, I see. It's a pencil.
Oh, Chris Bradford wrote the answer. He beat you.
Oh.
Pencil. Yes, so it's a pencil. It's big. It's a rectangle. What is it? So it's big, it's a rectangle. What is it? Yay, thank you, Amy. It's a blackboard. So yes, it's the board. It's small, it's green. What is it? Yes, it's the turtle. Thank you, Matthew. It's Shelly. She's our turtle. Okay. So you can look at this book and say, oh yeah, well, this is a cute little story. Or you can look at this book and say, this is a great, sneaky, interactive, fun way for me to expose my children, you know, my students, you know, the basic grammar forms. Let's look at another book. Good old Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Okay. So we have the same grammar forms over and over. Goldilocks is in the kitchen. She is eating baby bear's food. Now she's in the living room. She's breaking baby bear's chair. Now Goldilocks is in the bedroom. She's sleeping in baby bear's bed. Okay. So using these kinds of graded readers, you know, for different activities or for storytelling in the classroom, this is a great way to draw students' attention to, expose them, maybe, and have them. Probably some of you are saying, well, wait a second, like this kind of sounds like a chant a little bit. Aha, a lot of, you know, graded readers for children or storybooks for children, a lot of times they're almost like a chant. So chants, songs, books, these are great ways to, you know, the repetitive language over and over again is great ways to teach children grammar forms and have them be able to absorb those rote chunks. Also, extensive reading. Students, you know, that's one of my areas too, is extensive reading. I have a big library in my school. Students can check out books. When students are exposed to a lot of, you know, grammar sort of, you know, that naturally occurs into the story, they're going to naturally acquire that. So in fact, a lot of times I get parents, you know, asking me, you know, what else can I do? You know, and of course they're imagining that I'm going to say, here's a grammar worksheet for your child to finish. That's what they're expecting me to say. And I say, okay, great, have them check out more books. But, you know, grammar worksheets, that's not going to be as effective as having the children read a book. Having the children read a book is going to be a lot more effective. Okay. As I'm going through this, you're probably having some questions. Please put the questions in the chat. I am planning on having, I'm planning on having some time at the end to answer questions about the things that I'm presenting today. Oh, am I going backwards here? Nope. Okay. All right. So again, how should grammar be taught to children? Cameron does say that you should avoid teaching grammar rules explicitly, especially, you know, like I said, using grammar terminology such as, you know, third person singular and noun verb. That's not really appropriate for young learners. However, it is appropriate to have them kind of focus on the form. One thing that I've been doing, and I was actually thinking this morning, I gave my first presentation on this kind of just technique that I just kind of came up with on my own. You know, it was just sort of something that I felt would help the children understand grammar a lot more, called grammar triggers. I gave my first presentation on grammar triggers like 18 years ago. Yeah, I was thinking about that. I'm going to have a video near the end to explain to you what grammar triggers are, which is a way to teach grammar without resorting to doing it in the way that you would teach an adult. Cameron goes on to say that children may be interested in the patterns of language and how they work. Okay. Especially when they get a little bit older, you know, they start thinking, you know, why do we do this and why don't we do that? Lindsay, who was actually Pinter was too. She was a plenary speaker for JALT I think in Nagoya in 2016, and Lindsay was a plenary speaker a couple years before that. She's also an expert on teaching young learners. Now she said, when you're doing writing, sometimes it's good to find a way for children to correct and notice mistakes without demotivating or embarrassing them. Like, going around and talking with them and having them erase and fix the mistake rather than coming around with your red pen and, I know when I was a child, I just like, no, don't do that to my writing. So in a way, Lindsay is saying something a little bit different from what Pinter and Cameron said. So anyway, after reading and learning about all of this, and of course, with my experience of teaching, at that time, I was getting my master's degree in teaching young learners, and I had to do research. And so I just really had this question, what's the best way to do this? Some people say consciousness raising is not appropriate. Is that really true? And so I did this research project in my own school with my own students, and the results were really, really interesting. So this is an action research project. So action, like usually our idea of research is, somebody sitting in a white coat in the corner with a clipboard taking a lot of notes. That's kind of more traditional research. Action research is when you are in the middle of it. Okay, this is your teaching situation, and you're going to do research on, on your students. So I was going to try consciousness raising for children. So for this project, I had 43 children between the ages of 6 and 15 at my own school. And I focused on the errors that they were making in their short book reports. Like I said, I have an extensive reading library in my school, and students borrow a lot of books. And I always tell them, choose the book that you like best and write a really, really short book report on that book. But the thing was, when I would come around and check them, I was noticing that the students were making the same errors week after week. Really, really simple errors, despite the teacher correcting them. And I would bring attention to them, and sometimes they wouldn't. I was like, why don't they? I mean, they say they understand, but why aren't they applying this when it's time for them to write? So this is the type of book report that I'm talking about. So it's just a really, really simple book report, just writing like one sentence in their opinion, a really simple book report. So I decided to really, really narrow my focus there and see what was going on here. So I took 1 week of book reports, and I tried to figure out what type of errors were being made. And I also wanted to focus on errors that I thought would be things that could be easily fixed. Okay, mistakes that could really, really, very, very easily be fixed. A lot of them were not making nouns plural, or not using possessive s, like Bob's pen. It's just right, they would write Bob pen. Not capitalizing the first letter of a sentence, not capitalizing proper nouns or names, writing, he do rather than he does, incorrect use of third person singular, not using past tense. Of course, if you're writing a book report about what happened in the book, you need to use past tense. Using the before a proper noun. Okay, so just saying, like they would say like the Japan when you don't need to say that. This one, they were writing HE''S when they meant to write his. Misspelling the word interesting. This was a common error. Or then this is sort of a translation error. They wanted to say like, kawaii so, but they wrote she is poor. I remember a very, very funny example of this. Somebody read a graded reader about, tigers are an endangered species. We need to help save the tigers. And their opinion of the stories were tigers are poor, which is just funny, like thinking of a tiger going shopping, oh, I don't have enough money or something. they meant to say, I feel sorry for tigers. So of course I took to heart the fact that I'm not going to use terminology or meta language, noun, verb, adjective, that I'm not going to use these type of rules when I try to get the students to correct their own errors. So I made this very, very simple poster with examples of the errors that we want to avoid. So I would check me and myself and the assistant teacher, we would go around and red pen correct the errors that the kids made on their book reports. And then I said, okay, look at the errors and look at this poster and just think, which did you make any of these mistakes? And, what can you do next time? So we had a little bit of time for them to look at the poster and reflect on their own writing. Okay. So my first cycle of action research, we did this for a couple of weeks. Like I said, I checked their short book reports with a red pen. The students kept their own reports. I hung up the poster. We all reviewed it together. They checked to see if they made any of the top 10 errors. We did this for 4 weeks. And my numbers came back and I had a lot of numbers and they didn't make any sense. Okay, what's going on here? Sometimes we had tons of errors and then no errors, and then it was just going up and down. If what I was trying to do was effective, of course, we should start out with a lot of errors. And then as the weeks go by, they should learn from their mistakes and we should have fewer errors. But that's not what was happening. Okay, so what is happening? I was wondering. So I decided to change what I was doing a little bit differently. I decided to do it as classwork instead of homework to kind of control what was going on more. So and everybody would do the same book. So I would either read for like older students, I would read like a chapter of a short story, like of a short novel. For younger students, I would read a short graded reader. And then I would put up the poster and we would review the mistakes. Then I would give them 5 minutes to write. Okay. And then all the students were assigned numbers, so I knew who was writing what, but they just had a number so that they felt, free to do their best work. Okay. I did this for 2 weeks and then I looked at everything again. Aha. Now the numbers made sense. Before I was looking at all the numbers together, but what was happening was most of the errors were made by students aged 10 or younger. Remember what Pinter kept saying? She kept saying that about, age 10 and younger, that this doesn't really work. However, older students work near the end of this 6-week project, they weren't making any errors at all, where the younger ones kept making the same mistakes over and over again. Aha. Then I asked the students, their feelings about this. These are the students that were 10 or older. So I did like this special kind of, this is like a, not the, where you have like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 for, you do that for adults. For kids, this is how you do research with kids. A happy face for yes, a sort of so-so face for, maybe, and a sad face for no. So as we noticed, pretty much the older students responded to this well. They thought it helped them make fewer errors. They thought that it really helped them notice their errors. And they really all thought that they would make fewer errors in the future when they wrote. So for the older kids, this was very, very effective. Now let's look at the kids younger than 10. So now if you look before, you see that for frowny face, which is no, we only had one older kid give us a frowny face. Whereas younger kids, we got a lot of frowny faces here. We got a lot of so-so faces too. So they did not think that it helped them make fewer errors. They did not think that it helped them notice their errors. And most of them didn't think that it would help them in the future. So this was, the students, not only was the reality that it was not helping them make fewer mistakes, but also their own feeling. And it seemed like that it was not positive for them. It was a negative thing for them. They did not feel it was effective. They did not enjoy it. So, of course, a lot of the objective of action research is when you look at a problem in your own environment, in your own school, and say, okay, I want to analyze this and I want to figure out how I can make things better. So of course, from the research, I decided to make things better in my school. Well, for one thing, it really gave me renewed confidence in my teaching and school curriculum because, for the younger ones, we often gave them a lot of, freedom to write, not for the book reports, but for other things, to give them a lot of freedom to write, a lot of freedom to speak. I never really worried so much about the younger children's errors. And now, what I've been saying for years and years to the parents, now I had proof. So it gave me more confidence. I put away my red pen for younger kids. This was the biggest change. No more red pen for younger children. I stopped it. And also it was a real reminder to be patient with mistakes made by children under the age of 10. And then I began to understand what had been going on. Like I said, I had these returnee kids who had lived in America, and then they come to my classroom and they can't, if they, I have 3 apples, and they're writing 'S for apples over and over again. I had one boy, he could not put spaces between any of his words. I had another boy who refused to use capital letters. He wrote names. And I told them over and over and over again. And then like one day when they got to be like older elementary school, suddenly they stopped making all the errors. And I thought, what's going on here? Is it because, that was like first year junior high, suddenly they stopped doing it. What's going on here? Now I realize, it's just because of the stage in life. That's all it was. So I could have saved myself a lot of unhappiness and grief, and my students, I could have spared them a lot of unhappiness and grief if I had just realized, okay, let them know that's not correct, but don't get excited about it. Don't make them feel bad for making errors, because it's just going to work itself out when they're older. This was another research project that was done in Japan. I would like to thank Yoko, who's the one who let me know about this a long time ago. This research project was really super interesting because she had 36-year-old beginner Japanese students who had never, ever learned English before. And she gave them 9 lessons over the course of 5 weeks. All she was focusing on is like the verb to be, and also plural. So like, it is an apple, they are apples. That's pretty much all she was focusing on. So she was trying to get them to, absorb this. Okay. So there's 2 technical terms here. So she like focus on form, the FONF group, the first group. So FONF is kind of when you try to teach grammar, kind of like the primary focus is like kind of on meaning. For example, like, show an example, but the important keywords and important grammar forms are kind of in bold. Okay, that's what FONF is. So when she taught kids that way, they were able to understand plurals and got that. They could not, the difference between is and are, they just weren't able to do that. The group where she tried to use a more traditional way of teaching grammar, where language is broken down to noun, verb, kind of idea, no effect whatsoever. They didn't acquire any of it. So I thought that was kind of interesting that, this researcher came in and tried this and tried the traditional way and found out that she might as well have not done any of it because the kids really didn't learn any of it, really. And then, so Ellis, so this was a paper by Gorman and Ellis. So I remember Ellis was the one at the very beginning was talking about consciousness raising, noticing your own errors may not be very appropriate for kids. He did a study with 33 British Council students aged 9 to 12. Average age was about 10 from Kuala Lumpur. So 33, they divided them into 3 groups of 11 kids each. The first group was metalinguistic explanation. This is like the traditional way of teaching grammar, using terminology, and teaching the rules. The second group was written corrective feedback, which meant that the kids would write something and then they would red pen correct it and give it back to the kids and let them notice their errors. And then they had a group, they just let the kids write and they didn't correct anything, okay? They did dictogloss activities. They tried to teach the present perfect simple tense, okay? So dictogloss is when you read something and then you ask the kids to listen to it and then have the kids rewrite it kind of in their own words, okay? But trying to focus on using this particular grammar form correctly. Now, it's really interesting because Dr. Ellis is like really super important person who has been promoting, noticing your own errors. We know it's a very effective way to teach adults. When he came to his conclusion in this paper, you could almost, usually academic papers are kind of dry, but you could kind of sense his disappointment and kind of almost sadness at the end that he realized that none of this had any effect. The group where they explicitly taught the grammar rules, the group where they corrected their papers and let them notice their own errors, and then those groups had no difference with the group that they didn't do anything with. It didn't have any impact on accuracy. It was really, really a very interesting study for me to read. So how can we teach grammar in a child-friendly way? Like I told you, I came up with this idea of grammar triggers, which is a way that I could, explain the grammar to the children and then quickly help them remember what was learned. So, even like a year later, I had to bring this up again with the kids. If I just started drawing the pictures on the board, the kids are like, I remember that. I've used this for years and years and years in my class, almost 2 decades, and it's just worked really, really well. So these are simple pictures and charts to help teach grammar. They must be able to be drawn quickly. I don't know, it's just rather than having something printed out already, the act of drawing it on the board kind of draws the kids in, and they just tend to remember it a lot better that way, I've noticed. It's very, very efficient. The teacher can draw them on the board quickly to remind the children what was taught the week before. Like I said, I came up with this kind of very, very organically because I got tired of feeling like I was starting from zero every week. I wanted to have a way to sort of, trigger their memory where yeah, I remember that, with these pictures. And like I said, even years later, the children will remember the grammar trigger if they have to go back and refer to it. So now I'm going to show you a video of me in my classroom, and I'm teaching these different grammar triggers and also relating them to pages in Explore Our World 1, pages that I actually teach. Now, as you notice, sometimes it doesn't exactly connect. And some of the reason is, like I said, I've been teaching these for 20 years. So sometimes I kind of go off script a little bit, but pretty much the same grammar form. Okay, so here's the video. This is the grammar lesson on Explore Our World 1, page 24. So plural and singular. So first, wait, hold on just one second. I want to make sure that I shared the audio when I did share screen. Just give me one. Oh no, I did.
You did. It was
Is
great.
the audio
Lesley.
okay?
Yep.
Okay, all right,
I can hear
sorry.
it fine.
Sorry. Let me go back to what I was doing. Okay, go back. Okay. This is the grammar lesson on Explore Our World 1, page 24. So plural and singular. So first, draw a picture of a cat. Of course, lots of jokes. No, this is not a snowman, it's a cat. Now listen from the kids. They tell me, a cat. Very good. Okay. Now, when you draw these pictures, you draw them very, very quickly. You're not an art teacher, you're an English teacher. So draw them very, very quickly. Okay, so a cat now, of course they'll say two cat. No, a cat, cat. Okay. Then after that, maybe with some flashcards we can practice, a picture of one cat, a cat, and many cats, cats. One dog, a dog, many dogs, dogs, and so on, which is some basic flashcards. Then we get into how you ask what the object is. So a cat, I tell the kids, what is it? Okay, and then, so what is it? It is a cat. But then I teach them, it is, boop. It's. Very easy way to teach contractions. Just the two words, it is, boop, it's. Okay. So, what is it? It's a cat. Now, next, what? Now, of course, they'll say, what is it? No, this is a cat. This is cats. So then I teach them, okay, a cat is, cats are, and it, they. Okay, ready? What are they? They are cats. Okay, then we practice them together. I don't usually do the contractions for their cats. A lot of books teach that, but I just think it's a bit confusing at this point. We just don't want to throw too many things at the kids at one time. Okay. So then after that, to practice this, keep the chart on the board and then practice this. Take a bunch of flashcards with nouns, singular and plural nouns that they already know. Mix them all up and have them, take turns asking each other in a chain. What is it? It's a cat. What are they? They are trees. What are they? They are boats. What is it? It's a book, and so on. This is the lesson from Explore Our World 1, page 76. The grammar trigger to teach possessives really came about very organically. I was trying to teach, my pencil, your pencil to the kids. Okay? So everybody take out your pencil. Of course, one kid says, I don't have a pencil. So, okay, do you have a hand? I have a hand. Okay, great. So we did my hand, your hand. Okay. Now this worked out really well, because you say they point to their own hand. My hand, your hand. And take turns, okay? That's pretty easy to teach. You write that on the board. My, okay, make sure you put enough fingers on it. My hand, your hand. Easy. Now, the problem with a lot of EFL textbooks is, now when they go on to his and her, they'll often have the children talk about other classmates. But that's confusing, because really that's you, right? Not third person. You're not talking about somebody in the room third person unless you're gossiping about them and being rude. So we're not going to gossip and being rude in my class. So what I did instead was draw, and again, very simple figures, and I made them very humorous to get a laugh out of the kids. Okay, so my hand, your hand. Then, stick figure here. I give him one hair because the kids complained. So, his, oh, he needs a hand. Okay, his hand. Give her lots of hair and a big bow in her hair. Okay, ready? His hand, her hand. Okay, so we all go together. My hand, your hand, his hand, her hand. Okay, then make a line with the kids. So the kids come to the front of the board and they'll say, you know, my hand, your hand, his hand, her hand. Okay? And then it's very easy also to take this one step forward. My hand, it's mine. Your hand, it's yours. His hand, it's his. So I said, we don't, so we don't say his, it's his, okay? And her hand, it's hers, okay? This is the lesson from Explore Our World 1, page 56. Now again, you're going to be teaching chunks of language, like for example, talking about wearing clothes, but also using grammar triggers. It's very easy to teach the children, the different forms when talking about different people. For example, I am wearing, you are wearing. If you want to be super fancy, you can make these into contractions. I am, boop. Oops. I'm, you are, boop. Your. Okay, so I'm wearing a jacket. You're wearing pants. Hopefully. This is Zoom after all. Okay, then next. Okay, let's see. Let's give him some pants. Okay. There we go. Okay, so the kids know by now, they've seen this pattern. They've seen this pattern. They know I, you, and he, and she. Okay? So I am wearing, you're wearing, he is wearing, and as I said before, make sure that you do this very quickly or the kids will get bored. Okay? All right? So he is wearing, and I try to elicit from the children, she is wearing. And if you want to be fancy and put contractions, he is, boop. He's. She is, boop. The she is, boop. She's. Okay. All right. And then from there, you want to practice either with a picture in the textbook, some scene that you found on the internet, some picture, or some type of flashcard, or a child's original drawing. So let the children personalize this. Okay, actually, if you can look, let's see, wait. Like this page, that's from, actually, this is from the, this is the older edition of Explore Our World, the workbook. There's a picture of kids in traditional dress. So they have the chance of, coloring this in and then, personalizing it, that they make the picture that they like, and then they can tell you she's wearing a pink skirt or he's wearing a green hat, something like that. So, personalizing it and letting them talk about it is a great way to practice too. All right, so pretty much in conclusion, what does all of this mean for us? So basically, one problem that we all have is that young learners cannot get enough natural input in the classroom, but focusing on the form can help learners understand the rules. So, not just presenting the language to them, but just sort of, looking at it kind of closely, like, hey, do you see these words? If you want to say this, these are the words that you use. This is the language chunk that you use, okay? One important thing, we can expose young learners to grammar practice. It's important, I think, to let students see and play with, more advanced grammar, but we cannot expect students to master the rules. You just cannot expect young children to master this. And you really should let the parents know that expecting their own child to master these rules at such a young age is an unrealistic expectation. And if they're just patient and wait for the children to get older, the problem often takes care of itself. Having too high of expectations can truly be demotivating and defeating if maturity will just take care of the problem. I mean, why make the children feel bad about themselves when if, just as they get older into a different stage of life, everything will take care of itself? Then maybe we should just be more patient and understanding. And also to find ways to teach grammar in a child-friendly way, using grammar triggers, pointing out the different grammar chunks in graded readers, letting students be able to read a lot and sort of be exposed to the natural grammar themselves, songs and chants, all of those things. Okay, so thank you very much. And I would like, if anybody has any questions about what I've just presented on, please feel free to write the questions in the chat. Do we have any questions?
Thank you, Lesley.
How I wish I could draw as quickly and beautifully. No, I'm terrible. Can I just spotlight myself real quick?
You was excellent. Okay, any question?
I am terrible. I am terrible about drawing. And actually, I think that is an advantage because I can very, very quickly draw it. And the kids are laughing at my drawings. Look at your cat. Looks like a snowman. No, it's not a snowman. It's a cat. If you spend a lot of time to draw a beautiful picture, the kids are going, oh, they don't care anymore. If you draw a really terrible picture, they will pay more attention. Trust me. Yes, as Monty said, kids love terrible drawing. Is there a chance to read your action research paper? Yeah, maybe I'll try to put it into the chat because right now I think as most research papers are. It's behind a paywall. I'll put it in the chat once I'm finished answering the questions. Yeah, terrible drawings are great. Adds up adding vocabulary to a lesson naturally, I have found. Excellent point. Okay. Curious about hearing how you manage your ER library, about checking books out. Okay, well, if I may, sorry, just we came up with our own system, and then later we offered it to other teachers. It's called Lixon Library, and we have quite a few subscribers around Japan to pretty much all language schools, and that's I found, you know, I really don't care. I mean, I am very much somebody who tries to promote extensive reading as an idea. I don't care if you use Lixon Library Mine or not, but just try to find some kind of barcode system. The kids love it. They love to beep, beep, beep. They love that. They love that. They love to check out the books and be able to do it by themselves. And just, it creates a really wonderful environment where children want to read. So that's actually, I've made quite a few. If you go onto YouTube, there's a couple of videos there. If you contact me personally, I could, you know, give you a recording of something that I did about that. Let's see. Thank you. Have you seen any difference between the children understanding of English classes since they started having it in elementary schools? May I be honest? No, I haven't. Sorry. I wish I could say otherwise. No, I really haven't. In fact, I've heard a lot of complaints that the schools, that the lessons that they have, the schools are not very interesting. Sorry. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm definitely not an art teacher, that's for sure. Okay, good. The stick figures with long hair for girls. Yeah, that's why I put the bow in the hair, because I had a boy who had long hair too. So I just put the bow. It's a joke where I come from, that, you know, we call them bow heads, the girls that wear a big bow in their hair. So that's just, you know. Let's see. How can you train teachers to plan lessons and teaching grammar based on triggers techniques? Well, I think you just need to train teachers, like, you know, come up with grammar triggers, you know, for your appropriate lesson, and, you know, have these things for teachers to use when they become appropriate. So when they need to use them, they can pull it out and use it, and then use it later for review. Oh, thank you. I'm glad that you built your ER library after attending my workshop. That makes me really happy. I'm just a really huge believer in extensive reading for children. I definitely believe, you know, one big complaint I hear over and over and over from teachers of children in Japan is, I do not have enough time to teach. You know, what can I do? And having children borrow books and take them home and read them at home really, really helps a lot. It really helps. Okay. Yes, Mayumi, thank you. Yes, that's where the name of my name of my school is Big Bow English Lab, and my grammar trigger with the girl with the big bow in her hair. That's where it came from. Yeah. Okay, good. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that you are expanding your library. That's wonderful. Okay, great. So if there aren't any more questions, I will hand everything over back to Yoko.
Thank you, Lesley. So everyone, could you unmute the mic to show our big upload to Lesley Ito? Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation.